On the morning of December 1st, 1948, a man's body was discovered on Somerton Beach in Adelaide, South Australia. He was lying on the sand, slumped against a seawall, with his legs outstretched and his head tilted slightly to the side. He was dressed in a suit and tie, and from a distance, it appeared that he might have simply fallen asleep by the sea. But when police arrived, they quickly confirmed that he was not sleeping. The man was dead. He carried no identification. The labels had been removed from all of his clothing. His fingerprints were taken and compared to national records, but no match was ever found. Over the next few weeks, the investigation would uncover strange clues. A hidden scrap of paper containing a Persian phrase, a code written in the back of a rare book of poetry, and a mysterious woman who may have been the key to everything. More than 70 years have passed since that morning, yet even with modern DNA analysis and a potential identification, many of the most important questions remain unanswered. Who was this man? Why did he die? And what was he doing on that beach? This is the story of the Somerton Man. It was just after sunrise when John Lyons and his wife went for a walk along Somerton Beach, about 7 miles south of Adelaide's city center. As they walked along the sand, they noticed a man lying in the shadow of the seawall. He was dressed unusually formally for a beach. He wore a white shirt, a tie, a brown knitted pullover, a double-breasted coat, trousers, and polished shoes. At first, they thought he might be drunk or asleep, but something about the position of his body looked unnatural. Later that day, at around 7 p.m., another pair of walkers noticed the man hadn't moved. They approached, realized something was wrong, and called the police. When officers arrived, they found the man with no signs of external injuries. His skin was pale, but there was no indication of trauma or violence. A half-smoked cigarette rested on the right collar of his coat. His pockets contained an unused train ticket from Adelaide to Henley Beach, a bus ticket, a pack of juicy fruit gum, a comb, and a pack of Army Club cigarettes that held 7 more expensive Conceitas brand cigarettes inside. Still, there was no wallet, no documents, and nothing that could identify him. He appeared to be in his early 40s, clean-shaven, in good physical condition. It was clear to investigators that whoever this man was, he had taken care in his appearance. The fact that the tags had been removed from all of his clothing raised immediate suspicions. The autopsy was performed the following day. Dr. John Dwyer, the pathologist, made several observations that added more questions than answers. The man's organs showed signs of internal bleeding, particularly in the stomach and the liver. His spleen was enlarged 3 times the normal size, and his stomach contained the remains of a pasty likely eaten a few hours before death. There were no signs of disease that would explain the internal hemorrhaging. No abrasions, bruises, or physical trauma. No foreign substances were found in his bloodstream. Toxicology tests revealed nothing unusual. No trace of poison, alcohol, or common drugs. Yet despite this, Dr. Dwyer strongly believed the man had been poisoned. In his report, he wrote, "I am quite convinced the death could not have been natural. The poison I suggested was a barbiturate or a soluble hypnotic. However, if poison had been used, it left no trace. Some theorized that a rare or untraceable toxin may have been used, possibly digitalis or strophanthin, both of which can cause sudden cardiac arrest without leaving detectable chemical traces, especially with the technology of the 1940s. Still, without concrete evidence, the official cause of death was recorded as unknown." Several days into the investigation, the authorities found their first real lead. At Adelaide railway station, a brown suitcase had been checked into the luggage room on November 30th, the day before the body was found. The staff couldn't remember who had brought it in, but the timing and contents suggested a strong connection to the mystery man. Inside the suitcase were several items of clothing, none of which had identifying tags. There were also tools, a screwdriver, a small knife in a sheath, scissors sharpened like those used by barbers, and a stencil brush used for marking cargo. There was also a pair of slippers, pajamas, shaving gear, and a thread card identical to the orange thread used to repair the trousers found on the man. One of the only clues was a name, T. Keene, which appeared on a tie. However, no one named Keene was reported missing, and none of the other items bore that name. Investigators suspected the name might have been deliberately planted to mislead them. The contents of the suitcase painted a picture of a man who had traveled recently, who cared about his appearance, and who may have worked in shipping or engineering, but they didn't bring the police any closer to learning his identity. In April 1949, nearly 5 months after the discovery of the body, the investigation took an even more bizarre turn. As police examined the dead man's clothing again, they found something they had missed earlier. Hidden deep in a small fob pocket sewn into the waistband of his trousers was a tiny scrap of paper, rolled tightly, almost like a secret note. On it were printed 2 words, Tamam Shud. The phrase was in Persian, and translated roughly to ended or finished. It appeared to have been torn from the final page of a book. That book turned out to be the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, a collection of Persian poetry that had become popular in English translation in the early 20th century. The verse that ended with Tamam Shud spoke of life's fleeting nature and the finality of death. It read almost like a suicide note, but that was far from certain. Soon after the newspapers reported this discovery, a man came forward to say he had found a rare copy of the Rubaiyat in the back seat of his unlocked car, which had been parked near Somerton Beach in late November. Investigators examined the book and confirmed that the top corner matched exactly. Inside the book, on the back cover, was a faint pencil impression, 5 lines of seemingly random letters, a possible code. The strange code found in the book consisted of 5 lines of letters, some of which were struck through. It read, WRGOABABD, MLIAOI, WTBIMPANETP, MLIBOAIIQC, and ITTMTSAMSTGAB. Cryptographers from Australia and abroad examined the code. Naval intelligence, linguists, and experts from MI5 were consulted. Some believe that it may be an acrostic, a cipher, or even a shorthand used in espionage, but no one could break it. Even today, the code has never been conclusively deciphered. It remains one of the most puzzling artifacts in modern forensic history. For many, it was the smoking gun, the final piece of evidence that suggested the Somerton Man had been involved in some kind of intelligence operation. This theory only grew stronger when investigators followed up on the only other lead the book offered, a local telephone number. The number written in the book led police to a woman named Jessica Thompson, who lived just a few hundred meters from where the man's body had been found. Jessica was a nurse, and when the police came to her door, she seemed visibly uncomfortable. She denied knowing the man, but when showed a plaster cast of his face, witnesses said she nearly fainted. Jessica had once owned a copy of the Rubaiyat and admitted to giving it to a man named Alfred Boxall years earlier. At first, police thought they had identified the dead man, but Boxall was alive and well, and he still had his copy of the book, untorn and intact. Years later, a new theory emerged involving Jessica's son, Robin. Photographers revealed that both Robin and the Somerton Man shared a rare genetic abnormality in their ears, along with the same missing lateral incisors, a dental trait found in less than 2% of the population. Some experts, including Professor Derek Abbott, believe this pointed to the possibility that the Somerton Man was Robin's biological father, and that Jessica knew far more than she admitted. In 2022, after years of appeals, his body was exhumed. Advances in forensic genealogy made it possible to extract usable DNA from hair preserved during the autopsy. Professor Abbott and a team of genetic genealogists used that DNA to build a family tree. After more than a year of research, they named a likely match, Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer from Melbourne, born in 1905. Webb had no known connection to Adelaide. He had no criminal record, and he had never been reported missing. He had separated from his wife around the time he disappeared, and there were suggestions of mental health struggles, but that was all investigators could confirm. If Carl Webb was the Somerton Man, then we may know his name, but we still don't know why he traveled to Adelaide, why he removed the labels from his clothes, why he carried a torn scrap of Persian poetry in his pocket, or how he died without leaving a trace. The mystery, in many ways, remains just as compelling as it was in 1948. The case of the Somerton Man is a rare kind of mystery, one where nearly every clue raises more questions than it does answers. A death with no cause, a man with no name, a poem that whispers it is finished, and a code that no one can crack. Maybe Carl Webb was just a lonely man, far from home, whose death was tragic but not sinister. Or maybe, just maybe, he was part of something far larger than we will ever understand. What do you think happened on Somerton Beach? Let us know your theories in the comments. Thanks for watching Unsolved Cases 24. If you found this case as fascinating as we do, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more deep dives into the world's most enduring mysteries.